What's up, Sherpa Network? Welcome back again to another episode of the Digital Fortune podcast. Today, I'm joined by a good friend and even better domain investor, Andy Booth. We're going to talk today about Andy's journey into domains. We're going to talk about his recent acquisition of Satoshi.com. We're going to talk about some stories about the domains he's owned, like LG.com, Weed.com, and many more. We're going to talk a little bit about the Booth Bros and their current relationship status, business relationship status. We're going to talk a little bit about Pokemon cards, so many other things. This is a great episode. You guys are going to love it. Before we get started though, make sure you check out our four sponsors for today's show, Dan.com, DomainSmoke.com, SecretBrokerage.com, and DigitalStartup.com. You can find out more on the podcast page at DomainSherpa.com. Hope you guys enjoy the show. It's going to be a great one. Hey everyone, I'm joined by Andy Booth today, and I'm excited to have him on the show. It's been a while that I've been trying to get him on. If he's a bit shy, I apologize, but here he is, and he's ready to go. What's up, Andy?
Good. Yeah, I mean, I've been receiving a little bit of stick for not appearing. I thought it was about time that I gave an account of myself and not James for the Booth brothers. So I think it's about time.
There you go. And I apologize to anyone if I'm a bit echoey. I've just moved into a new office and I've got no furniture in here, so I can literally hear myself talk. But we'll see if JT and the Domain Sherpa crew can clean this up in a bit. So
well, you make up for it with the football decorations. So
exactly, I got that signed Barca shirt. I think that's 2010 season.
That's awesome.
And I got the Rooney bicycle kick and Champions League ball from when United won in 2008. So I haven't got anything. I'm not as good as you with my collection, mate. But I've got a few things.
No. As you know, I think I mentioned it on the last chat I did at Namescom. But if you've got any football memorabilia to sell me, I'm probably your man. So strike while the iron's hot.
There you go. No domains, just memorabilia.
Exactly. Forget the NFTs, man. Physical, real world is what I'm about. Let's go.
There you go. Yeah, no. Like I said, I really appreciate you chatting with me. It's it's interesting because when I first got into the industry, I heard a lot about Mr. Andy Booth, but you were like nowhere to be seen when I first got in, like 2016, 17, 18. You were just like this guy that I'd heard about that did pretty well and found some good names.
Yeah. You know what? There's a lot of the old guys or the old guard that are this way, and I don't know what it stems from, but I think you'll find a lot of the OGs are kind of private, and this is the domain industry all over. For example, in order to be inclined to do domaining, it's a lonely business. You've got to be a bit of a lone wolf and a strange kind of character to do it. So people like modern investors that have come in have more. So we feel a little bit naked now because the original geeks are kind of being a little bit outclassed by the guys who have that social, adaptability, which not all of us do. So that should kind of explain.
Yeah, I mean, the game is changing as well, right? I mean, so you would consider yourself an OG, I guess. When did you get into the industry?
I've been doing websites and stuff from the early 2000s, and we're going back to the dial-up days. I don't even know what the speed was, but bloody slow. To load like a decent JPEG would take 10 seconds. So I got into all the naming side of things back from just GeoCities. I don't know if you have any memory of that. Probably not. You probably around the time you were born. I don't know. But once upon a time, GeoCities used to offer the ability to develop websites simply because very few people then had technical skills. So it was like a basic template to publish your stuff. So I recall in my case, like I was going back to like 16, I was selling Pokemon cards.
Oh yeah.
So we're going back all the way, and it's relevant because they're a thing now.
Yeah.
Like your Charizards from 1999 are suddenly valuable now. And me and even James, I think back then, I shouldn't admit this, but I was like 16 at the time, which was ridiculous and laughable that you would collect Pokemon cards at that age. Now there are grown men who are doing pretty damn well from it. So I don't feel as bad.
So
But
16, you were collecting Pokemon cards, and you're
yeah.
Oceana, going downtown.
Go downtown with the other 12-year-olds, and yeah, exactly, just mental level kind of thing. And I mean, I remember I registered a GeoCities URL, and I would publish some of these Pokemon cards and sell them around the world. This was the magic of the internet. So I'd literally get an inquiry from someone in Norway. It happened. He would send me some, what they were at the time, Scottish pounds. and I literally received Scottish pound notes in the post. And then I had distributed the card. So, the internet even back then had power. It was a real thing. And this was from a GeoCities URL. So, even then you knew that the power of the internet and a website. And then the naming sort of side of things, it was just for me like easy.
How did it find you with the GeoCities URL? Like
it was published. Good question, but I think some of them were indexed by Google. And you had so little competition back then that your crappy, ugly ass GeoCities website could make some traction and could actually propagate to all of the various parts of the world, like corners, like how the hell did some guy in Tromso hear that I owned the first edition Blastoise or whatever it might be?
Do
you know what I mean?
Edition Blastoise? Did you actually have
I didn't. It's a bad example, but no, I mean, we definitely got into it like about the base set sort of time. So they released the first editions, but that came about a year or two before. Like it became a thing in our village.
Yeah.
So when it did become a thing, we were on the base set Pokemon cards, and of course we didn't know at the time it held value, but we had tons of these these valuable cards in hindsight. Then my mom chucked the friggin' album.
Oh, she got it. So I actually had like an album full of Pokemon cards as well.
Yeah.
I did that, and my brother, when he was he was younger than me. When I kind of left, he took them all out, started ripping them up and chewing them, and yeah. So I never got to sell any of them. But
well, my mom says she chucks them out. But if you see an eBay listing and it's Maggie K, please notify me.
She's probably selling them for James.
She's entrepreneurial, that's for sure.
I mean, one of the things about domain investors is I feel like so many of them basically like wheelers and dealers. They know how to sell stuff. They know when things have value, and they just go out and they try and sell it. So it sounds like a similar kind of thing. What was your kind of entry point into domains? Like, when did you buy a domain and say, oh, this domain has value, I'm going to sell just purely the domain?
Yeah. So after the GeoCities days, I got into other things. I would run like football websites. That's obviously one of my main interests at the time. And I even went through a period of watching the WWF. It was the WWF at the time, and that was during the cool days. It was during the Attitude Era, which was the late 90s, early 2000s, and that was the time when like The Rock and Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin, this kind of charismatic bastards were behind, the industry, and made it actually quite interesting. And again, it coincided with that kind of age. And, I was just poor, from a pretty poor family, to be honest. But it was during the time that you could make money on the internet. And then, I had a friend actually at high school who had a computer gaming website. And he said to me one day, would you write an article? Because I've always been pretty good at English, which obviously ties into the word mongering, which you kind of have to do to be a domainer. And he asked me to write for his website. So to some degree of success. So from that point, like, I started this WWF website. And the way you would drive traffic to that WWF website was not Google. Like, at that point now, you had so much competition that it became very difficult. So the only way you could drive traffic would to be a journalist. So so back in those days, you would write the article. So you would go to the main sources, which were like there were certain sources like the Crimson Mask, I think, was one, and there's certain websites that pioneered wrestling news. So you'd rewrite those articles almost, and then publish them across multiple well-known wrestling websites, and plug yourself at the bottom. So you'd say something like Trish Stratus, kind of naked, something a little bit cheesy, just to sort of clickbait, more or less. And that was acceptable at the time, and that would drive traffic to your site. So it was from the WWF website that I caught wind, like the first person as a wrestling journalist, that the WWF were changing their name. And that broke, if you like, from a spoiler with an image, which was of the next WWF computer game, but it was WWE. And we all knew that there were sort of legal wranglings with the World Wildlife Fund. So something was going on. So I took the chance at the time and registered WWE wrestling.com. And then, so it was like a £6 or $8 direct knit reg. And that was back in 2000, I think. And then I got an offer from I think he's still around. There's a guy called John DeMaio from advertising.com. And he came in with like £1,000. And I was like, yeah, let's go. And I took that money out like right away. I used that money, and me and my pal, this was just after college, we went and did an interrail around Europe. So to me, like £1,000 in the bank was like cha-ching. So that was the time, where it was like, right, okay, so this is an industry. This is real. So yeah, I mean, I didn't actually follow through too much at that point. It wasn't until 6 years later or so, and it went back to the football side of things, and it was Cristiano Ronaldo Rooney, as you will well know as a Manchester United fan. And this was at the time that both of them were at United, and it was at the incident. Was it Euro 2008?
Was it when Ronaldo got Rooney sent off?
That's right. So it was a time where something controversial happened in a major tournament, and Ronaldo at the time was good. It was a great player, but not superstar famous. Something happened that summer, and not only did he massively up his game through the disappointment of Portugal not winning the tournament, but he also was hated. And sometimes, as some domain industry people will know, any publicity is good publicity. Yeah. And that was the case for Ronaldo, and that was what propelled him to superstar level. Now, at that time, when that incident happened at the tournament, the website or the domain name CristianoRonaldo.com was on a for sale. And it was a very basic page. It wasn't at Cedo, it wasn't any marketplaces. But it was a guy from the UK who just registered them, was speculating, and it was buyable for £1,000. So that same £1,000 that I used off WWE wrestling, I used 8 years later or whatever it was to buy this Cristiano. And then I moved the name pretty quickly because it got traffic, it converted to parking revenues. And so it was an easy sell. So from that, I then took it further and figured out, DN Forum, that there was real potential. You could reinvest that money fast.
Yeah.
And I think first,
one thing about like both of those names is like, I feel it's interesting because I feel like a lot of investors get into domain investing from like super like sketch names like that, like WWE wrestling. You obviously wouldn't register that today because you would be worried about trademark infringement. And then same thing like with Cristiano Ronaldo. Like at that time, I guess, I mean, you could make an argument that but not really, not really.
Not really. But at the time, that's the thing. At the time, you do what it takes. And for me at the time, I had honest intentions.
Yeah. I didn't know about all of that stuff back then. Yeah, you don't.
You didn't know, exactly. Didn't know. And I was literally going to develop into a website. And yes, I stuck up some Google ads. So not that honest intentions. but it was just nice to have some sort of side income. And then to discover about the aftermarket and then get connected to all these people, that was the turning point. And it was there that I reinvested that and found 3letter.coms, which seemed like kind of a no-brainer. And at the time, some of these top combinations, like all premium letters were, they were available for like $5,000. So this was completely at a time where it was the Wild West. There was a clearly defined liquid market. You could take to the forum and find a buyer, like overnight or same day, whatever. But it was at a time where the mine, if you want to put it like that, was pretty untapped. So literally you could just email 50 people, right? And you might get a positive response from 5. So we're talking like a much better hit rate than exists today.
Yeah.
Today it's more like, as we both know, it's more like per 1,000 emails, you might get one glimmer. And it's not even a buy, it's just a maybe. So it's painstaking stuff nowadays. But back then it was just, wow. But if I had the capital, it would be a different story. But I would just burn and churn them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you got into the more premium domain names pretty quickly. Like there's a lot of people that go through the domain investing journey and they kind of start to build a portfolio and hold a portfolio and kind of just like it just kind of expands over time. You didn't really take that path, right? You premium and flip, premium flip.
You couldn't. I mean, literally, and it's a good advertisement for anybody that's starting up because it's still possible to this day to a different extent, and there are different ways of doing it. But the barrier for entry in domains is low, which is great for someone like me. You only have to be good at one thing, so and it's not hard to get involved. So, there was an obvious market. There was plenty of opportunity back then. And as I say, I just followed the path of least resistance. And that at the time was 3letter.coms.
Yeah. And you specialized in those for years. I mean, you still really are known for, your 3letter.coms. Not so much the last couple of years, but up until recently, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got Nat Cohen to thank, largely behind Nat, because he was my main buyer. There were a few guys, it wasn't just Nat, but there were a few players back then, some of whom have just kind of faded out. But they all did really well. I mean, they all did really well. They sat and held for years. And then, of course, with the Chinese coming in, just everything exploded. So everyone did well from 3 letters, but it's a different game now. And I think you've always got a chance in domains and the industry if you're adaptable.
Yeah.
So the picture was just a different one back then. But now coming in, there's still opportunities, but you've just got to know in what.
Yeah. I mean, so like one of the for me, one of the most impressive things about you is that, like you said, you had no money at the beginning. You really started from square one.
Yeah,
And I think that it probably took you 10, 15 years of like flipping, churning until you get to the point where you're at now, and you've been at for a little while, where you can just say like, hey, I'm holding these names and I'm waiting for, you know, what the people that you were selling the names to before were doing. Basically the Nats, the Drews, like they were saying, thanks, Andy, I'll take that, and then I'll sit on it for as many years as I want. You're in that spot now. You're ready to do that, right?
I was in my lane. I stayed in my lane, and yeah, I mean that's true. That's true to a point. But as you say, you get to the point where you're like, do I want to be in this lane anymore?
Yeah.
And you see, it's circumstantial. So at the beginning, you have to churn the names because you just don't have that liquidity. But that's the thing. You've just got to see, what are people buying, and why am I giving someone else the opportunity to 5 times or whatever? And you've just got to know what to hold and what to fold. But that comes with time and experience. And yeah, me and James, and I know we were heavily involved together before, but we were laughing stocks because we literally would come across the best, the creme de la creme of domains, and that we bought from companies like Microsoft, but we'd churn them for a 3K profit, and it was like, hang on. And you look back now and you think, what a bloody idiot.
Talk to us about some of the names that you've owned over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted this to be a happy interview, but obviously there are some sore spots. But there have been some good ones over the years. Crikey. I mean, as you well know, so many good 3 letters, pretty high in 3 letters. I recall, I mean, one name I was quite well known for was LG.com. And I remember I went to a traffic conference, and you have to put your company name and whatnot. And I recall I had booth.com, but I wasn't using it in any, just emails. So I used my company name as LG.com just to sort of like get it out there, let it be known. And that at the time was just an incredible coup. But I held on to it for about 3 months, and then
because the money that you could have made on it was just too much to turn down, right, at the time.
No. So that story is another. That's even worse. That's nail in the coffin. But with LG, it wasn't a nice payday. It was, I took a big risk.
Did they come after you?
Yeah. So I took a major risk at the time. It was owned by a chemical company, and it was later known that they owned both LG.com and LGE.com. And the obviously I say LG like expecting people to know what it is, and this is where the inherent problem lies. When I say LG, people are going to think telly or fan or air conditioning, and that's why they had to appoint a case. I mean, just because they're well known, I don't think they really did have a case. Their own argument was from their own fame. So that one is a little hard to argue. But at the time, they took LGE.com from this chemical company, and they turned down the opportunity, bizarrely, for LG.com. So it later was known that I bought it months later from the chemical company, and they said, LGE turned it down. So of course I think it's in the clear. No, there's no problem. I'm just, I've not bought this to exploit anyone's mark. There's tons of LG companies.
100%.
But later on, obviously they went for the jugular. And in the case of LG, it was straight to a lawsuit. It was because you've got the UDRP, and then you've got a lawsuit, which is a lot more
costly.
Not only pricey, but it's just cut and dry. If you lose, you lose.
Yeah.
So, we had that to contend with. And in the end, I took the path of least resistance, like I'm very good at, and we settled.
Yeah.
They knew they knew they were probably going to lose the case, but I couldn't risk. I had too much money and like a good percentage of my capital in that one name.
Yeah.
So it was like a break even. It wasn't as good as it should have been. LG wasn't the only one. I've had other great names like weed.com.
Yeah, just weed.
Yeah, it was just casual, just weed. So I guess that's probably my number one regret. But it's not just me. It wasn't just me, because actually another well-known domain investor, Richard Lau, sold out to me. So he wasn't.
I hear about that. I think Richard Lau mentioned that when I spoke to him on the podcast last year.
Yeah. So I wasn't the only one regretting that. So, and not only that, I was involved with another domainer, Rob K, for that particular transaction. So I think we're both kicking ourselves. Yeah. I think we made like, I don't know, 20%.
Didn't you own NFT.com back in the day as well?
I did, yeah.
Because you owned pretty much all the 3L.coms at one point.
Yeah, exactly. So I see like, a major trend emerging, and I'm like, did I ever have that 1 point? Search my mail. Yeah, it was me. And yeah, sure enough, I say we because that was when my brother first came into the business. So that was 2016, and that was when I missioned him to go find domains. That was one of them. So he got the contact with a company. It was called Canopy, and they sold it, and it wasn't cheap.
Canopy, I think I invested in it. They're public. I'm pretty sure they're public.
Yeah. Canopy.com.
I had some money with it.
You want to take that out now? If they're making those decisions, pull your money now. But yeah, so they sold it at the time. It wasn't cheap at the time, and it was 2016. So that was in the heat of the Chinese boom. So the 50K was not a buy based on any prospects, really. It was more a buy based on the wholesale price.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was a buy at 50K, whereas you might be able to flip it for 60. So that was the premise there, and that is exactly what happened. So it's like tiny margins, and then of course so many regrets. So many names you look back on, but yeah. I can't complain.
Yeah, you can't complain. We'll get to that in a minute. But so like James obviously came in kind of like under your wing in 2017 kind of time.
Yeah.
I mean, his model obviously turned out to be very, very similar to yours, churn and burn at the beginning, churn. And I know that recently you kind of put out a tweet and saying, hey, we're no longer the booth bros. Like, I do my thing and he does his thing. So what's the deal there?
Yeah. So there are a few comments on the tweets, suggesting it may be something to do with a recent domain buy, which is definitely not the case at all. But it just came down to more principles and a little bit more to do with the way of you do business. And I don't want to make a serious generalization, but I consider myself just a domain investor. There are cases where I will broker for certain clients. It's rare, and it's only like good trusted friends that I do that for. If they want to find a domain. But I think sometimes the broker sort of mentality is different, and then I think my brother, while he is both, I think he's more in the mold of a broker, and he's more of a salesman than me. And if you were to go to a conference and say booth, the first person you think of is him. So, and I found that out the hard way by people coming up to me and saying, "You're right, James." I'm like, no.
I'm the freaking OG booth, and you're saying that, huh?
But not many people know it, and especially like the new people, because a good broker knows how to sell himself, and that has never been my my principle. I just go about business quietly, and then James has just got a different approach to doing things. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Well, I'll say some things are wrong, but he's got to a point now where he's more than capable of holding his own.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's going to be tough for people to kind of separate us and then not just plonk us together as the Booth brothers. But he's just got his own.
I think you both. I think you both. I think you both have fairly. I think you both have pretty decent reputations, to be honest. I think that it's good that you. I would say it's good that you've separated a little bit, because you don't want to be responsible. Yeah, you don't want to be responsible for each other's actions in the eyes of wherever it may be. Theo will get something up on Domain Gang, and then there'll be something else that goes up, and it's difficult, right? When you start getting bunched in together and you have to be responsible for each other's actions. So I think it makes a ton of sense. You got on track. He's an incredibly successful guy. I'm good friends with your brother as well. And I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough time, and it's difficult as well when you sort of your partners on certain things. When you sort of the work rate is so different, and it's hard to have a balance of who's doing what, who's selling what to who, and how are you doing that. What's your technique? It's because you don't really get to see what the other person's doing. I do know one thing he's doing, and that's playing a lot of RuneScape. So so we need to get him off that and back into business. But yeah, I mean, he's doing really well on his own. So I think it's just more for him. I think it's more for his own personal development. So he'll probably thank me for it one day.
Yeah. How much older are you than him?
We've got 5 years. Yeah. 5 years difference. So yeah.
By the way, your dog is basically the best, like the most well-behaved dog I've ever seen. Just there in the background.
Yeah, but have you seen the size of my dog? He's massive.
Yeah.
And therein lies the problem. We need to get out and do some exercise. Get money.
Media Options is the industry's leading domain broker specializing in domain acquisitions, high-value domain sales, and domain name consultation. As pioneers and thought leaders on the subject of the domain aftermarket and domain name value, plus through their clear domain acquisition service, Media Options offers startups and established corporations an unparalleled scope of high-value domain options, providing access to domain names and curation technologies not available elsewhere. Media Options believes in the power of a great domain name and is dedicated to helping you obtain yours. Call or email today to put a domain to work for you.
So, would you say the last, 12 months in domain investing has been a good time for you?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's been strange times. It's been really weird times. It's like I feel overworked, multiplied by the quarantine to the power of a baby, and all those things. Make your head explode. It's been tough times on a personal level, and I think we can all relate. Like social interactions. I don't know about the state of US, but like here, people are just not as enthusiastic to go out and about. There's no nightlife, so it's just slowed down in that respect. But the upshot of it is that the business online, our virtual businesses, our NFTs, if you want to say that, if you want to plonk domains into the NFT category, all these digital assets are, suddenly really, something. Yeah. And they're finally being, the potential's finally being realized, like something we saw all along, like years and years ago. But the rest of the world is starting to come on board to it all now. I was just, exercising my vocal cords with my dad. I've got limited voice credits these days. I get to a point with my cords now, after having the cancer treatment, where it just stops. Yeah. So I've used a lot of the credits, I've got to say, but I use them well on my dad, and I was educating him into Bitcoin, and he's a traditionalist, and, like Peter Schiff, basically, like one of him. But I think even their generation is seeing the utility in these things. Even if they don't agree with it, you've got to sort of, roll with it.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you've got to, from my perspective, it's just like it's what if? Like, what if I can't? It's FOMO. I can't. If I miss out on games, I'm gonna be so much more upset than if it was to go to like zero.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that danger that somebody pulls the rug, but
I don't think that's gonna happen anymore. I used to be worried about that. I don't feel.
I
like
did,
Yeah.
I did, and for me, in terms of the cryptocurrencies, we're talking about that. To me, the thing that sealed the deal was Elon Musk. You know, that guy, and whether you love him or hate him, he is an innovator, and you know, has changed the world. You can't argue with that.
Yeah, I think
So, you know,
I think he has 50 million followers on Twitter.
yeah.
Imagine how much power he has over the people.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that are following him are typically people that have got money as well and spend.
Exactly. Well, he's about to put Doge on the moon, isn't he? So,
Yeah.
you know, watch that space.
I know.
But no, I mean, it's true. He does have a lot of power, and it wasn't just that though, because you know, him aside, leader aside, you know, it's the fact that these institutions now are getting seriously involved, and that to me was that move was a sign of what's to come, and it really got to start waking up to it now, and I think regardless of price, it's here to stay now. The price is.
Have you been reinvesting domain profits into Bitcoin?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair to say, and this is the thing, you know, like nowadays, I think certain people are considering pricing their domains in Bitcoin.
Yeah. I saw someone talking about that today. A lot of people are doing that.
I think that's a marketplace idea. I really do.
Yeah, I think so too. For a number of reasons actually, but yeah. What about NFTs? Are you buying NFTs?
No. Seriously, I'm not really qualified to talk about them. I probably would be if I owned the .com. I'd make a point to find out everything I could about NFTs.
I'm not qualified to talk about any of this, but I do it anyway.
No, no, I don't know a great deal about them, and it sounds to me like anything could qualify as an NFT, a tweet, an image. And then this kind of, we're in the realm of ridiculous there, in my opinion. And I worry that that's going to bring down the things that are useful. Yeah. But it's definitely here to stay for a while. I just don't know how long. But the idea of buying a crypto punk for you know, $30,000 is just,
the market's down apparently at the moment. It's been going down since February. So, but because it's kind of like it's an illiquid market, I think it's difficult for people to truly see it like you see it with Bitcoin, right? When Bitcoin goes down, you notice it instantly because it's like, shit, Bitcoin's down 15% today, right? You can't really tell as much with NFTs. So I don't know. Yeah, interesting. So let's talk buys. I mean, I know you bought and sold so many names in the last 12 months, you know, Pulse.com among loads of other unbelievable names, but the one on your shirt is the one that I'm most interested in.
Oh, I didn't think you were going to forget about it.
Oh, I'm never going to. How could I possibly forget, given the...
Sorry, I didn't think you were going to talk about it. I didn't think you were going to mention it. I knew you wouldn't forget about it. No. Yeah, so there is that. There is Satoshi. And yeah, I mean, you know what? I cannot be taking the credit for this. So a good friend of mine, Rob Kay, was the one that discovered this name, and you know, it's a good lesson it's a good domain story as a whole, because there's a lot you can take from it. And you know, it was one of those where there is a website, you know, like whenever you try and go shopping for a domain, and you just, you know, seeing what's out there, seeing what's available, or if the website's not developed to a high level, there's a chance.
Yeah. And
you always have to take that that viewpoint, that strategy. And this was one of those instances where there was something up. You know, in theory, it could have been a business, and even a decent business. Sometimes there's no telling, but it had a sort of a dated feel. So as a domainer, these are the kind of websites that you want to be contacting. You know, something that you think is a good domain, holds value, but you're not sure if there's a profitable business behind it or anything relevant. And, I think I'd probably myself reached out to Satoshi, obviously, because it's like one of the main, terms in the industry, really, is that obviously the founder of Bitcoin. It's a unit of currency.
Exactly. If people make payments in Bitcoin, they're going to be making payments in Satoshis. Like, if that's going to...
if Bitcoin does realize its potential, then the Satoshi unit is going to be something suddenly. And it's just it's all connected. If Bitcoin goes up significantly in value, then so will the notoriety of a Satoshi.
Yeah.
And therefore, so will the power of the word. It was sold, by the way, back in 2014 as a publicly, stated sale. 75,000.
Yeah.
75,000 in 2014. People say that, everyone's a hater. There always exists. Not everyone is a hater, but there are haters, and you will always find haters when you make a post on something positive that's happened. And there's always that. Well, it sold for 75k in 2014. Well, yeah, it did. But do you know that Bitcoin at the time was worth $180?
Yeah.
So okay, yes, congrats to that guy. On the surface, 75k was a great buy, but do you know how many Bitcoins he could add?
Yeah, he paid up.
Like 500. So was it the best use of 75k at the time? Probably not. But let's just say if you're looking at it from a unit of dollars, the guy did well. And back to the original point, this guy Rob is known quite well by some as our mutual friend. He got a reply from the website from a contact, and the thing is with domaining, the owners of these premium domains don't reply to everybody. So there's no logic sometimes. So 100 people might contact a company about the same domain, and one of them hears back. One of them gets
right. Sometimes it's just like maybe at that time he had like a tax bill come through or something,
It's exactly sheer timing. And another thing, people say, well, it's because you're known, or it's because you're famous. Everyone knows you've done well in this, or this name, or this broker. But it's not the case, and I can attest that from chain.com. That's another story. But my friend Connor, from his Gmail address, got the lead on chain.com. And that's another entirely different story. But going back to Satoshi, it's one of them where timing is everything. It doesn't matter about your email address. It would help to have your own domain name, of course. But Rob got a reply and he got a price. And, he asked a few trusted friends, their opinion on the value of the name, and I was one of them. Was at the time, and then I replied, for the price it's been offered, it's a buy, do it, 100%. And then so did somebody else. On the surface it looked like a great buy, but the Rob in question was kind of hesitant. He's a big believer in Bitcoin, and then didn't want to give up his Bitcoin. He thought, well, I could wait till it goes up a little bit, and then revisit. And I said to him, don't. Given the market, given the domain market, given the crypto domain market specifically is on fire. Yep. So domain names are doing great in their own right, but then you go into a niche like crypto and you marry them, and you are you do, you're in a different.
Honestly, I think the NFT phase has got some weight in the value of that.
Oh, sure, for sure,
because of its uniqueness, right? All about NFT is all about uniqueness, and obviously Satoshi.com is unique.
Yeah. So I mean, he didn't go for it. He didn't pull the trigger. So I said to him, look, I will. I will, and I will give you a commission, like a generous commission. So why don't you do that? I mean, you could wait, but by doing that, you're going to run the risk of losing it, and then everyone's going to be kicking themselves. And he said, yeah, he's a good guy. He said, okay, look, that's enough. I'll take that. I'll take that offer. And, I didn't know at the time. I didn't know really what it might be worth. I just knew that my instinct was it was a buy.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where it comes from just experience and that, you make gut decisions. And then as long as you're right more than half of the time, you're successful still. You're doing all right in the space.
100%. I mean, I think that's wise to scoop it up. And like you said, if you didn't scoop it up, then I think someone like our friend Drew from DomainSherpa and Media Options, he would have scooped it up in no time as well. Right?
He would have been sniffing.
He would have been sniffing, so you might have not had too much time. So I know that you and Drew have had your ups and downs and all kinds of stuff. I know that he I think he sold you your daughter's name in .com, didn't he, at some point?
He did.
You guys had a pretty good relationship for a long time and got a little bit rocky last year. And I see that he's brokering Satoshi.com for you now. So you guys are all good again?
So, yeah, I mean, look, we did go through a well-publicized
little breakup.
Yeah, let's put it like that. It was a tiff, and things were said, and it wasn't just me; it was my brother. But by the same token, and I actually, at the time I didn't see it so much, but knowing Drew and how he is, he likes theatre, and he knows how to publicize himself. I don't think he meant it at the time. I don't think he meant it like that at the time, but he was just trying to be funny. He was just trying to create a stir on social media, and some people were like, not that funny. I just think his joke sort of missed the mark a little bit, and he just kind of took it a little bit far. But I think he was just taking the piss. Yeah. In hindsight, he's just I think he's watched too much wrestling in this time. He loves all that, like the whole face and heel dynamic. So I think really is just trying to drum up a bit of drama. That's all.
I mean, when I spoke to him on a podcast a couple of months ago, I think we talked about this as well a little bit. And at the end of the day, you're both two of the most successful domain investors that exist. And I think that it's only right that you two kind of both step up and say all things aside, there's probably a lot of mutual respect for what each other have done. So end of the day, sounds like it's all good. Satoshi's gonna find his way. It's all good
as long as I stay in my lane.
Well, I mean, I think with Satoshi.com, the lanes are kind of switched up a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, he's happy with that. But look, with Satoshi, he as you say, it's everyone has their skill set, and I'm not and have never been a salesperson. I'm capable, and then obviously have moved domains, but selling to end users is an entirely different feat, and it's an entirely different skill set. I mean, it's not just about being sociable, and there's so many more components to it. It's about there's a level of IQ that you need to know what to say, when to say it. There's patience, just everything I don't have. You need that to be like a high level salesman. And in the case of Satoshi, he just he has the contacts, he has the crypto contacts. So you just got to hold your hands up and just say, you're the man for the job in this case, and just it's business at the end of the day. So
there's no doubt. The media options team are extremely good at selling high value names. There's no denying it. It's like that's clear as day. They're the best out there. They're the best in the business. And Drew is very and he's got great contacts. And I think you guys, I think Satoshi.com being broken by him is the right thing.
Yeah. And also, I mean, for me, from my point of view, it slows it down, because if I get an offer tomorrow for double, I'm going to think, oh shit, mate, old habits kick in again. And it's like, flip, should I? And then you sort of lean in towards doing that. But with a broker and with like quite a long obligation, a long contract period, you kind of, it puts the brakes on.
Yeah.
And it's what I need, basically.
Whenever I pick up like a super premium name now, I'm definitely going to try and partner with Josh Schoen, my business partner at WWE. I mean, I've got one name in particular that I partnered with him on, and we bought it last year, and then like a couple of days later, we got like an offer for way more, like 4 or 5 times more than what we paid. I would have scooped it up. I would have been like, let's go. But he is, you know, people that don't know Josh Schoen, he's like the ultimate hodler. Like the guy, he will hold the name until he feels like he's got the best possible offer. And I'm just not like that. I'm like you, Andy. If I can make quick money, I want to do it.
Look, I mean, see, sometimes that helps. Sometimes it helps to be grounded, or at least get other opinions in the fold. And it's like Rick Schwartz is well known and is one of the most successful people in the business ever. And, you know, he had like so much success, you know, by having a steely mentality to sales. And once you've got a good capital to work with, you can be in that fuck you mindset, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and you can say, don't waste my time unless you and I know that it's worth a lot more to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, stop offering me 2,000 quid, you know, like step it up. And, you know, it works certain times, but you can only have that mindset if you're in a position of comfort, if you like. And so it depends on your circumstance. Like,
I mean, domain sales in general is it's dependent on the seller. It's really not dependent on the buyer.
No, exactly. I think
people think otherwise. People think otherwise. Oh, motivated buyer, you're going to get a high price. It has nothing to do with that. It's just who's holding the name.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So that should be the objective, just to get to a point where you don't need to liquidate, you know, you don't need to give your domains away, because friggin' hell, they really are valuable.
Yeah.
You know, like to the right person, you've got a deep, good name. You just got to know what's good and what's not. You know, you've got to be able to make that distinction. And once you figure it out, what works and what doesn't work, then, you know, you basically accumulating a pot of gold, more or less, digital gold.
Yeah. How many domains do you have, Andy? Not that many.
Not many. So, you know, like other people have completely different mindsets to this. You know, you can have massive portfolios of thousands, and you know, it's a different ball game, and that the sales every day, and it's exciting, I guess, in that sense. But for me, it's just I focus on like quality. So my portfolio is under 100.
Yeah.
But of late, I'm adding tons of .io.
Yeah, I was going to say, we should talk about .io a little bit, because I know you like .io.
Yeah. So I mean, just because, you know, just the limitation, the mine of premium quality .coms is non-existent now. It's possible. Your time, as we discussed before, timing, persistence. So email a company, it doesn't matter, like no one's too big. That's another mental, you know, point or mindset you've got to have. Nobody's too big. It could be Microsoft, it could be Apple, and they might sell your domain to lowly Joe Blogs from down the block. Doesn't matter. You have a chance. So you've just got to persist, and, you know, the opportunities are still there. But .io, like, is emerging fast, in my opinion.
Yeah. What kind of names have you bought in .io?
With, you know, anything and everything that's a good word. You know,
in .com, you buy it in .io.
More or less. So, I mean, the .io for me varies in that it's more like crypto centric. Excuse me. So I told you I'm running out of credits.
I got you. We'll wrap it up soon, mate.
So like crypto centric, gambling's another big one, and that, you know, there's a big company, the Coin Gaming Group, and you know, they love the .io. They have so many names in that form, and, you know, it's advertised across the globe, football clubs. You've got sportsbet.io, the sponsor, and I know the guy. I know Tim behind it, and they are accumulating good quality IOs. So the gambling industry is a big one for IOs. But anything just tech related, and that's most things these days. There's for most things there's like technology component. So for those kind of words, like for example, just put compact.io. Like there's not obviously has IO application, but it could be. There could be like a little compact device that could work on. So that kind of thing. And the good thing about these IOs is that they're 4 figures. You can buy them in the 4 figures.
Yeah.
So to me, it's the parallel is like going back to the .coms in 90, no, maybe not 95, maybe the late 90s. And the opportunities that existed then. And I think, you're never going to usurp .com, and that's not the objective, but there is a market for .io, and for me, it's the second biggest extension for now. I think, and I see it growing.
I think it is. This year has been a great start for .io, and just in terms of like the aftermarket, people are going to start. They cannot sell for as little as what they were selling for before because the wholesale prices are so high. It's like when the wholesale prices are 7, 8, 9, 10K, you're not going to sell for 15K anymore. You're not going to sell for 20K anymore. You're going to need 30, 40, 50, 100,
Exactly. It's again that, and when the supply is exhausted, everything's going up. So I still think there's opportunities there. So whenever a decent IO comes across my desk, if you want to say that, then I'm all ears. So,
all right. Well, Andy, we've been talking for quite a while, but what about people that are listening? Are you open to them? Bringing you names?
Depends. Are your names worth hearing? Like as long as
oneword.com's top oneword.io.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't.
So of course I am, and shoot me an email. But I'd prefer to stick to the names that really do have value. So if you know what you're talking about, email me. That was my advice.
If you don't, email me.
If you don't, go at the drawing board and we'll talk in a year.
That's funny. All right, mate. Well, it was great chatting to you. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention? Did I miss anything?
No, I think we're good. And so the next step is, if there's any news on Satoshi, if there's any sales, probably never hear from you again.
We'll be back to the 2016, 17, 18 days where we don't know who Andy Booth is. But at least we got this interview in. I really appreciate it, mate. I know that you don't do these very often. I know that it's not like your thing. So, special thanks for coming on.
No worries. It might be the first of many. We'll see.
I hope not. Let's keep it exclusive.
Maybe not. Not that interesting.
All right. Thanks, mate. All right. And everyone, thank you for listening to the Digital Fortune podcast on Domain Sherpa. Bye for now.